Star Wars Resistance, Episode 5, The High Tower. We open up on Kaz. Niku's voice comes over a communicator. He sounds urgent. He sounds like he needs some help. And then we hear some feedback. The camera shifts a little bit to the right, and we see Niku right behind Kaz. A little gag, and I'm assuming a little setup for what will be a payoff later on in the episode. Something to do with the communicator, which Resistance often does, and really well. Every episode seems to have something that sets up another something. A voice comes over the station speaker system, and the voice tells everyone to use energy sparingly. They're rationing energy. The power flickers on and off. We hear a little bit of conspiratorial-minded thinking here. The bartender, when Kaz and Tam and Niku walk in, says that the power issue isn't an accident. She says Captain Doza is responsible. The tower where Doza is, where the upper echelon of the Colossus Society live, always has power. She says Doza is part of the First Order. I don't know if she knows this for a fact or if she's just guessing. There's probably some validity to it if she's saying it, I would guess. Or maybe it's just a wacky conspiracy, who knows? But what I like most about this moment is that we hear from a citizen of the Colossus about the separation of classes on board the floating city. We hear a little grumbling, a little lack of confidence in the leadership. This floating pit stop might have some corruption going on. Once again, as I've said in previous episodes ad nauseum now, Resistance does a fantastic job in the world building department. Ultimately, the power turns back on. An ace pilot walks into the bar. His name is Hype. Kaz is kind of starstruck by Hype. He introduces himself. They seem to hit it off right away. Hype recognizes Kaz from the race he had with Tora. Somehow, in the conversation, the First Order gets brought up to Hype, which furthers Kaz's determination to get into this big tower and find out what Captain Doza is up to. Another aspect of the show that I love is the focus that is majorly on pilots and aircraft. We hear little jargon, we see maneuvers, aces escorting other ships. It's a detailed look at flying in the Star Wars universe. It's fast-paced and fun, but it seems to go a little deeper than just that. While Kaz is walking outside, a random little guy says, "There's a curfew tonight due to the power outage." We see a supply ship coming down escorted by the station's ace pilots, and it touches down on the landing platform. While Kaz, Niku, and Tam are outside, they watch the supply ship open up and see stormtroopers walk out. And here's something that I never really thought about until this episode. The Colossus is kind of a neutral ground. It's kind of neutral territory. It's not aligned with any faction. Kaz says he'd love to find out what the First Order is doing here, and Tam responds by saying there's nothing they can do about it anyway. They're allowed to come here like everyone else. It never dawned on me that the Colossus is just a big pit stop for anyone to come to, even the First Order. This is another reason I love this setting, because it's not a Resistance base, it's not a First Order base, it's kind of a safe haven for people without a foundation, without a home, without a side, without a faction. Just people making a living, showing hospitality to strangers, known for its tip-top ace pilots. With this knowledge, the show could really dive into some interesting dilemmas. This floating station is aligned with no faction, at least that's how it seems. So when shit hits the fan, what do? Do the citizens splinter and join their own kind of separate teams? Or do the citizens completely reject the notion of us versus them and try to do everything in their power to protect their own, choosing to fight for themselves and their own station's survival rather than fighting for someone else's silly-ass cause? It's a really neat concept, one that I'm hoping they explore even more. So Kaz says something like, "I wonder what the First Order is doing here," like I said. Niku hears this, and in literal fashion, Niku walks towards the stormtrooper and bluntly asks why they're here. Obviously, this freaks Kaz out. He doesn't want his cover to be blown. He doesn't want overt trouble. I have to say, Niku is a character that I've liked since the first episode. They use him smartly. Yes, he's the comic relief, but he's sparingly used. This is probably the episode he's most relevant in, if I remember correctly. If he was front and center in every single episode, I can see how he might overstay his welcome and be a little annoying to the audience, but I love his literal take on everything. As I've said from past episodes, he reminds me of Data from Star Trek in a way. He's a lovable idiot. And the more I watch the show, the more I'm wondering if this is yet another setup. A little twist. Could Niku be playing dumb? Could Niku be the First Order spy that Kaz is trying to hunt down? I doubt it, but it could be an interesting twist. I'm guessing a lot of people are predicting this because, you know, who's the most unlikely candidate to be a spy, right? Probably Niku, which is why maybe it's him, and I'm guessing that a lot of people are guessing that it's him. And maybe it's just an easy guess for the audience, but it certainly would come as a surprise to the characters for sure. So out of frustration, Kaz takes Niku's communicator. Hype, the Ace pilot from earlier in the episode, walks into the scene and invites the crew to the Ace's Lounge. The Ace's Lounge is like the high society part of the Colossus. Best food, best drinks, best views. If you want it, they have it. We go from seeing the dark and dreary side of the station, grease and grime, to seeing the flip side, a section of the station that is bright and pristine. I love the look of the tower for that reason. It's a nice visual contrast, and also a way to show the class structure of the station. The best of the best live a life of luxury, and the rest of the station has to deal with power outages and seem to have to try to just get by. Kaz starts sneaking around the tower, secretly puts the communicator that he took from Niku on a droid's plate, and this droid is going to go up to the tip top of the tower to deliver some refreshments to Captain Doza, who is meeting with the First Order. The First Order is offering Doza protection from the pirates that keep coming and attacking the base. There's a little bit of blackmail going on too. The First Order guy says that they could report Doza's dealings with the criminal underworld to the New Republic. Doza tells the First Order guy that they can't buy him with a single fuel shipment. He says they'll have to do better than that, and the First Order guy says they will. So there's a little bit of corruption going on the station. Maybe Doza isn't necessarily a bad guy. Maybe he's just looking out for the best interests of his citizens, and maybe in doing so, he's gotten into a little bit of trouble, a little too buddy-buddy with some of the nefarious folks. If I had to guess, that will be the case. I doubt Doza will end up being some big bad First Order sympathizer. I'm guessing he's just playing politics, kind of a I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. I'm guessing in his mind he's just looking out for the best interest of his citizens. We'll see. So while the droid walks out of the meeting, once the meeting is over, the communicator gives off feedback because it's too close to Kaz's communicator, alerting the First Order troops, and they begin to chase Kaz. Kaz dips into a room to escape the First Order. It happens to be Tora's room, that the pilot he raced in a previous episode, Captain Doza's daughter, and she ultimately helps Kaz escape out of the window. Niku and Tam are sitting in a bar and they see Kaz on the side of the tower after crawling out of this window. Stormtroopers start firing down at Kaz. I loved how the scene was shot. Bar patrons are looking out of the window at Kaz. They're betting on him falling. Some are betting that he's gonna make it. The camera cuts to Kaz trying to jump from platform to platform while cutting back to the patrons cheering every time he successfully makes a jump. The way the cuts were placed made this moment playful in a way. Kaz is running for his life. He's scared. He's pumping himself up to jump, and it's a little nerve-wracking, and then the camera cuts to the bar where people are lightheartedly watching him and laughing and cheering and placing bets. I thought it was a nice little back and forth contrast. So the power ultimately comes back on. Kaz doesn't know what to think about all this. He doesn't know what Doza's motivations are. He met up with the First Order, doesn't really know what's going on. He seems more confused by the situation now more than ever. The episode ends with Doza looking at a security camera image of Kaz when he was outside of the station, and he says, "Who are you?" So out of all the episodes so far that I've watched, this is probably the simplest, I would say, and it might be my least favorite in a lot of ways. And in other ways, such as the possibility of corruption on the station and the idea of the Colossus being neutral ground, it's kind of my favorite. I don't know. Little wishy-washy on this one. With every episode, we seem to get more layers piled onto what this place actually is. We see more of the inner workings of the station itself. We see how some people live a life of luxury, others do not. A tower full of high society folks gazing down at the underlings who live down below. Resistance is a fun show. It's not too goofy. It rides the line really well in my opinion. On to the next episode. HelloGreedo, out.